What is going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Masculine Health Solutions Podcast, where I'm joined by James Clemmons, a Marine veteran who knows a thing or two about anger management, which he's going to enlighten us on and basically go a little bit more in depth than some of the stuff that we just kind of see at the surface level and just help us understand more about that, along with things related to our behavior as men, as it pertains mainly to us here on this podcast. And I'll be asking questions in regards to this. But first and foremost, James, how are you today, sir?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. And for all your listeners, I am from Nashville, Tennessee, so I do have an accent. So uh, don't uh, don't judge me. I'm well educated. I just have an accent.
Hey, no worries, man. I don't judge at all, dude. Some of the brightest people I've had on my podcast, and some of the brightest people that I've worked with, they come from the South, and man, they run laps around me. I'm from Canada, so we just kind of don't really have an accent. Well, I actually take that back. I don't know if you ever met our Newfies. Nobody can understand them though. It's like a different dialect amongst itself. But first thing I kind of want to jump into was just kind of your backstory. Because as you mentioned before, you were a Marine, and what kind of made you get into, creating freedom from anger? And before all that, just your backstory, like what got you started down this path?
Well, I always felt the need to help people. I don't know if that drove me into the Marines or not, but when I got out, I worked various jobs and was never really happy at what I did. No matter how much money I made, how successful I was, and I decided to go back to school. And when I
Mhm.
went back to school, you always have to, intern somewhere. So I
Yeah.
ended up interning for the sheriff's department, and just by randomly, they put me in the programs department. And I'm thinking, my degrees in criminal justice. I'm gonna go out there. I'm gonna be FBI. I'm gonna catch the bad guys. And as I interned, I realized that I really enjoyed helping the people that have been caught.
Mhm.
And
Interesting.
and I just never left. And I've done that for the better part of a decade. Then me and a associate of mine that I worked with, we decided we wanted to, you know, branch out and help more people. And when COVID happened, we saw that um, a lot of people wouldn't get in the services to them. So we decided to go virtual. And we've
Mhm.
been able to help people actually in Canada, Hawaii, Philadelphia, kind of all across the country by doing classes virtually. So it was just kind of it wasn't planned. Like most things in life, it just happens. You just kind of go
Yeah.
with the flow.
No, 100%. I mean, the main reason why I started this podcast and looking into just men's health and kind of diving deep, right? Because first it started off like for myself, to be completely honest with you, it's kind of I looked in like male enhancement, then it was sexual health, then it was mental health, then it was just men's health in general. And I'm a personal trainer and everything just kind of stems, but I realized right from the get-go, man, that when it comes to our health as men, it's almost like everything is just connected, right? And it kind of all stems from the mind, which is kind of why I think it's brilliant what you're doing, right? Because I think that what you're doing is helping a lot of guys heal, right? And that's the one thing, it's the avenue that I've been going down as of late, and it's probably one of the most painful because it makes you really face your demons and stuff, and sometimes you got to uncover a lot of these old traumas that are there. But that kind of brings me to my first question, where I wanted to ask you, when you meet somebody and you get into what it is that they have and the issues that they have, what is one of the most common foundational problems that you find for guys that are suffering from anger issues?
Oh well, it definitely varies, um, but I would say the vast majority is just it's just our socialization. It's our programming. It's what we're taught. Hey, this is what a man's supposed to act like and be like. You're not supposed to show emotion. You're supposed to stuff everything down. You're supposed to have all the answers. And really, the hardest part for me is to have them really question those beliefs that they've been taught. And everything that we do, our whole being is taught.
Hmm.
You know, we're a blank computer and we're programmed.
Yeah.
And to have them really challenge the programming, if it's coming from your mom, dad, grandparents, siblings, whatever, it's really hard to question those things.
Yeah.
And the example that I always use, which the older I get, the less this is becoming relevant. But most people have seen the movie The Water Boy
Oh
with
yeah.
Adam
Great movie.
Sandler.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
love that movie. Yeah.
So remember the scene where he's in the college classroom,
Yeah.
and the professor, he calls him Colonel Sanders, asks, why are
Love that.
alligators so ornery? And then he says, well, my mama said alligators
Yeah.
are ornery because they have all of them teeth and no toothbrush. Then he says, well, your mama's wrong. And then what happens? He's challenging
Yeah. And that's
what
where
he
he
was
tackles
taught by
him.
his mom, and he gets angry. And we do
Hmm.
the same thing to ourselves when somebody's challenging, whether it's us or somebody else, what we've been taught, what we believe, we get
Hmm.
angry.
Yeah.
So that's probably one of the hardest things is to really have people to dig and go, okay, well, maybe they were wrong. Maybe there's another way to look at things because it all starts, we take a cognitive behavioral approach, so it's all about your thoughts. But yeah, it's that's probably the toughest thing because man, we like to hang on to those beliefs.
Yeah, dude. No, it's kind of interesting that you mentioned that. And that's a great example, by the way, because I mean you simplified it for a guy like me to just grasp that concept very easily, right? And to your point, it's kind of one of these things that I talk about this a lot where it's almost like I feel like you're right. We come in as a blank computer, but it's kind of like the software is where the updates kind of happen. And a lot of these software updates happen due to the environment that we're in. And a lot of the times it's like the people that are updating these systems don't have a clue of how to really update theirs, but they're the ones giving us the information and telling us to do what they did. And it's like, but bro, your life sucks. And it's kind of like you live in misery, and now for some reason I'm picking up on this bullshit and I'm living my life this way too. So I completely agree with you on that. And unfortunately, it's kind of like I mean, I do see it like a nature versus nurture thing. I think some things are inherent to us, but for the most part, I think it is a very, very, I don't know, like it comes down to our environment because it's true. It's like when you live in a violent environment, you kind of pick up on a lot of these things.
Yeah, but one of the great things is that we're able to learn, we're able to you know get out of that environment if we so choose,
Hmm.
which a lot of us we like to uh, give up and say, this is my lot in life. I have no choice. So this is the way it is. But everybody has choices, but they're tough, and we like to do what's easy.
Yeah,
We're
man.
lazy by nature. Yeah.
100%. I mean, I think all of us kind of just, hey, what's the easiest way for me to go from point A to point B? And even as I mentioned before, like for myself, when I was dealing with these traumas, one of the biggest issues was just kind of coming face to face with it. My question to you is, how do you go about doing that in a way that's not really going to piss off somebody that's already got anger issues, but make them realize or make them conscious about these issues? How do you bring that up and just kind of go about letting them know, okay, this is an issue. Don't get pissed off about it, but we should probably address it, talk about it, and solve it.
Well, usually they do get pissed off,
I figured.
but uh, but yeah, usually it's just allowing them. It's not telling them, "Hey, this is what you need to do." It's
Hmm.
allowing them to figure it out for themselves. Allow them to have that aha light bulb moment, and
Hmm.
because it's what we do. We're educating. We're just kind of guiding. What they choose to do with that information is on them. But the more you bring things up, the more they kind of see, hey, maybe this ain't working,
Hmm.
rather than just kind of getting in there and go, well, you're screwing up here, you're screwing up here, you're screwing up here. No, just kind of, talk about, okay, well, here's other options. Okay, here's some ways you could possibly avoid this. Do you think this would work? Do you think this would work? What
Hmm.
does this look like to you? And then
Hmm.
allow them to process it themselves because nobody likes to be told what to do. And as
No,
soon as you start
yeah.
doing that, the communication stopped. Like, I ain't listen to this person. He's bossing, telling me what to do. No, I'm here to guide you. Here to help you figure this out for yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's kind of like I feel that you would almost have to kind of get them on that path and steer them in the right direction, right?
Mm. Yeah, and one of the big things, especially whether you're dealing with alcohol and drugs or anger management or emotion management, as I like to call it, is figure out what motivates somebody.
Hmm.
We're all motivated. If we decide to do nothing, then we're motivated to do nothing. But we have to figure out what's going to motivate them to make that change.
Hmm.
And everybody's motivation is different, so that's definitely an approach that we like to use. Is figure out what motivates this person,
Yeah.
and let them see the pros and cons of their behavior or drug use or whatever.
One question that I kind of got now in regards to that, because it's almost like, as a trainer, when I take something out from somebody, I find that I kind of got to plug that hole with something else. I can't just take something away because if not, they're going to look for something else to kind of cope with it, right? It's like, oh man, this guy just took away my favorite noodles. I can't stand this guy. And I'll be like, wait, you should eat these mushroom noodles. It's like, it's kind of gross, but it's better than nothing. How do you go about for, let's say, somebody that's dealing with drug addiction, when you take that away from them, that's kind of been their self-soothing kind of medication for a while. How do you basically implement something new? What are some of the things that you look for to implement into their life now to make it better and so that they don't go back to, those old habits?
Well, it's really getting to know another person and figuring out, okay, what do you what do you enjoy to do? What did you enjoy to do? What are some
Hmm.
things that you were good at that you enjoy? Because as we know, if you've known anybody suffering from drug addiction, is you know they're a totally different
Yeah,
person.
yeah,
And then you try to really get to, okay, who did you used to be? What did you aspire to be? What are some goals to set for yourself? Like I said, all like that motivation, and try to stir that back up. Maybe you want to be an artist, and maybe you get back to doing that, pursuing that. Maybe it's getting into some classes or something. Just really trying to figure out where their personal interests are, and really kind of build from there.
yeah. Because, like I said, I mean, if you take something away from somebody, they're gonna find, or usually kind of, it's almost like you got to be very aware of the fact that they could go back to it just because they got to fill that gap with something, right? So that's one of the things that I find very interesting. And one thing you mentioned was finding out who they were before. Um, on that path to self-discovery, what does that kind of look like when you're trying to figure out who they were before? Because it seems like it's almost like at one point they probably got detached from the person that they were probably on the way to become or becoming, I guess. How do you go about kind of like almost, it's like you're reconstructing their life or almost making that connection, bridging that. How do you go about doing that? Like, what does that process look like?
Well, you know, it's just talking. It's really asking questions. Okay, you figure out, okay, what point did the alcohol or drugs start to become a problem? Then just kind of work from the backwards forwards, and then kind of try to reconstruct it that way, and then try like really try to piece together. Okay, well, okay, this is the path you were on at this point.
Hmm.
You chose to go down this path. Okay, so how can we get back to that point? Is that something that it could be like they could have totally different interests at this
Yeah.
point, but okay, well, this is where it all started. So let's not try to complicate things. Okay, like you're on this path. Do you want to get back to this path? How do we get there? And then just kind of make a plan. But
Interesting.
yeah, I mean, it just really it takes a while, because a lot of people don't want to open up and just really that's why like I said, we mainly just do education classes, and a lot of times people will take our classes and then realize, what, I probably need a little, some in-depth stuff, which, hey, that's fine. I'll gladly refer you to some people that
Hmm.
can get into that deep therapy stuff. But I think what we offer is a great thing. We're a hell of a lot cheaper.
Hmm.
Um, And just educating yourself can help you so much, and then it can educate you to realize, hey, I do have some stuff I really need to deal with. So I, like I said, we're out there just trying to get the word out. If you think you get alcohol and drug problems, okay, educate yourself on alcohol and drugs, and then
Hmm.
decide if you need treatment, or where you want to go from there. If you got anger problems, hey, educate yourself on anger. If you feel you can't fix it yourself, then seek out additional help. Um,
100%. Yeah.
but yeah, it's really the hardest thing that I've seen with the men that I've worked with is just asking for help.
Yeah.
So reluctant to ask for help, and they view it as a sign of weakness when that's the farthest thing it is. It takes a lot of strength to realize, hey, I can't do this alone.
Yeah.
I need some help because
Yeah.
I know things are going down the wrong path, and I need a little bit of assistance. There's no shame in that at all.
Yeah.
There's still that stigma of asking for help as a man.
Yeah. One thing that I was kind of thinking there as well is kind of like, what is the thing that generally forces or almost gets a man to say, you know what, enough. I'm at that point. I'm at that breaking point. What is it that becomes the precursor to a dude finally saying, you know what, I fucked up enough. Like I got to solve this issue.
Mm-hmm.
What usually does that look like? Because I know even for myself, it's usually a lot of, well, back in the day, now I'm a little bit more humble now and kind of learning more about my ego and all that, the older I get. But even for myself, it's kind of like, like I said, like facing that right in the mirror and just kind of looking at it. It's very, very difficult, even for myself, like as a dude. But what is the most common thing that you find that brings the guys in and finally has them say, you know what, this is it. Like I'm done with this. I want to solve this issue. What does that usually look like? What does that scenario or that scene look like? Or
Well,
the event, I guess.
uh, well, unfortunately, like a lot of people that I work with, it's usually a judge.
Oh, geez.
It's
Okay,
usually
yeah.
it's usually they're forced into it, and
Hmm.
then they realize, hey, I've got a problem, or uh, like even a lot of people that on the outside that seek out our classes, they're court ordered,
Hmm.
but we've had people be court ordered to take our class and then realize, hey, I'm here for anger management, but now I realize that, hey, I got a drug problem, and then then move on to to get additional assistance with that. But usually, like us as men, we're hard headed.
Yeah.
We hit that rock bottom. We're gonna keep digging because we're just gonna keep digging, and it's usually got to be something really, really drastic to make us seek out help. And unfortunately, it's usually law enforcement or something that
Yeah.
or uh, wife threatens to leave, or it's got to be some grand health problems. I mean, it's got to be something because we always make an excuse to just
Yeah.
keep doing what we're doing. It could be a vanity thing. If I
Interesting.
feel I don't look as good as I used to, then that might. I mean, everybody's different. Everybody has that.
Interesting.
Hey,
Yeah.
this is enough. But my experience usually, yeah, it's when you're forced to do it.
But even then, I guess it's a good thing though, because a lot of people sometimes in life, even for myself, it's like, oh man, I gotta go do this thing that I don't want to do, and then you do it, and then all of a sudden you come thankful on the other side when you're like, hey, you know what? I'm glad I got that done, right? And I think even for these guys, even though they're in that difficult situation, a lot of them are probably very appreciative of the work that you've done after, they get through the whole process. But one of the things that I wanted to ask you, because I know you got to have at least a couple of stories, but if you could just enlighten us or share a story of your favorite success story, I guess, of somebody that's worked with you, gone through the whole process, and basically changed their life around for the better. What would that look like?
Yeah, I mean, I've got a couple because in the field that I work in, once they're done with me, they probably don't want to see me ever again because that means they're probably incarcerated again.
Uh-oh.
Um, so you really have the probably the thousands of people that I've worked with, you just kind of, they go out the door and you just kind of wish them well, and you just kind of like, you don't really know what's going on with them unless they get rearrested.
No,
So it's
exactly.
kind of a thankless kind of job. But I have had a couple of experiences where I was actually leaving and COVID was going on, so everybody was wearing masks, and I was leaving out the front of the building, and this guy yells out my name. I look over, and I'm like, "Who's this person?" His face is covered up, and he's sitting in the lobby of the sheriff's department. So that's probably not good. And he says, "Hey," he said, he took his mask off. He said, "Hey, I'm so and so." He said, "I took your class a couple of years ago," and he said, "Don't worry." He said, "I'm not turning myself in." He's like, "I'm actually here to pick up somebody." He said, "Because I actually work at the halfway house
Oh, nice. There.
that I went to once I left there." And that was, I mean, I was like, man, that was great. I really couldn't remember the guy because, see so many people, but I was just like, I mean, that's awesome, And and there was another guy I was actually on the phone with, and he worked for an agency that helped people, once they got released, um, mainly with like mental health issues and alcohol and drugs and everything.
Hmm.
And I was talking to him on the phone. He's like, "Did did you used to teach alcohol and drug classes?" I said, "Yes, I teach all kinds of classes." He's like, "Yeah." He said, "I took your class." He said, "I was at a rough, part of my life, and he got out and got his master's degree, and now
Wow.
he's doing intake for this
Wow.
company." And I was like, I said, "Well, I hope I helped a little bit, So, so like you really don't know. I mean, it's really because especially the people that are like court ordered and stuff. Hey, I got to do X amount of time with you, and
Hmm.
then poof, they're
They're kind of
gone, and
gone.
you just like,
Yeah.
um, I had an individual actually reached out to because he live in lives in Hawaii. So I reached out to him when all the fires were going on. I
Oh,
was
yeah.
hoping
Jeez.
he was okay, and he said, "No," he said, "I'm on a different island and stuff." And first thing he told me, he said, "Hey," um, he said, I've been sober for a year,"
Nice.
and this individual came to us for anger management, and um, and through that, and like I said, we with the anger management stuff, we really try to dive in, and we can't help ourselves to get talking about the alcohol and drugs
Yeah.
stuff. But yeah, I mean, it's great to hear that he's doing well, and like I said, you just don't ever know, once you start to talk with somebody, how it's going to lead in their development and their life, and it's all
Yeah.
through just educating them, education. It's I'm a firm believer in that.
100%. And I mean, it's really cool for you to actually see some of the changes that you've made because they'd say, hey, you know what? You played a part in that, a lot. And like to your point too, it's almost like I think we know, but sometimes when you get over one thing, you're like, okay, I don't just have anger issues. I might have an alcohol issue. It's almost like you realize that there's more at play here. But the good thing about it is that you're able to unravel that, right? You're able to pull on that thread, and all of a sudden you're able to take apart everything that's going on there. And I think, like, even for myself, it's like that domino effect, right? When you get one good thing going in your life, it's like, well, why not get more? And that's kind of where I think it's super important for us, and I guess in your case, to make sure that you're able to talk and have these discussions with these guys, because when you're able to do that at an in-depth level, you're really able to see what other issues are kind of, underlying issues there that they probably wouldn't share with anybody else, I don't think.
Hmm. Oh yeah, and I've found that um, by us just strictly doing education is that especially men are more apt to talk to me versus if I put on my counseling, hat and say, "Hey, you talking to a counselor?"
Yeah.
"Oh no, no, I ain't talking to a shrink or whatever.
I'm not crazy.
But yeah. But if I say, hey, I'm just a teacher. I'm here to educate. Oh, okay. I'll talk to you.
Hmm.
But there's a very thin line between counseling and education. I mean, a very thin line. So we, you know, kind of do end up kind of, tricking them into uh, diving a little bit deeper than they probably would have thought in a education class. So
Yeah, but it's something that's kind of necessary. I think, in my opinion, I think it's genius because we kind of need that. I think as dudes, if we really want to get ahead, sometimes it's almost like getting away from that stigma. But another thing that I was kind of thinking as you were mentioning that, how many of the issues do you think are mental health related or more alcohol related, or do these things just kind of correlate in some way and are connected?
yeah, there's definitely a lot of co-occurring um, people out there. Usually, people are self-medicating uh, when they have a mental health issue. 9 times out of 10, if I'm dealing with somebody, I could definitely tell they're ADHD.
Hmm.
And 9 times out of 10, I ask them, okay, well, what's your drug of choice? I already know the answer. They're like, marijuana. I'm like, I wonder why. He's like, well, it calms me down. Have you ever been diagnosed with ADHD? Yeah. Do you take any medication for ADHD? No. Okay. So what you're doing, you're trying to regulate, trying to, self-medicate.
Yeah.
See, you see that a lot. Um, like I said, a lot of people work with, schizophrenic, and I mean, it's unfortunate because, like I said, that the huge stigma on mental health is still there.
Yeah.
And I'd rather go out here and get high, get drunk, than to take a pill that's prescribed to me. Um,
Interesting.
and then even when they do get on the pills, they as soon as they get out or whatever, they stop taking it, and then next thing you see them again. And it's like it's kind of a revolving door thing.
Interesting.
Um, but you know, me personally, medication is one thing, but that education definitely has to play a role in it
Yeah.
because you do have the capability of controlling your thoughts, regardless if you got ADHD or whatever.
Yeah.
Medication helps, but having that education, having that counseling, talking about those traumas, and you know, and I think that if I was king of everything, I think it should be, you know, you should be doing both, not just, hey, here's the prescription for the rest of your life. Good luck. This should
Yeah.
help with it. It's it's kind of like putting a band-aid on a bullet wound. You're not doing a lot.
Yeah.
So I think the counseling, the education needs to come with the medications. But it's just that's just the society we're in. We're big on pill pushing,
Yeah,
not
that's
much on
that's
education.
I mean, that's one of the things that, like, when it comes to allopathic medicine, where I find that, long-term health or just kind of when we're looking at chronic issues, it's almost like we don't really address them or take care of them the way that we should. And I think that education piece that you're mentioning there is crucial. Because in my, my field and what I do, it's almost like I educate people more on how to eat, right? A lot of people think they know how to eat, but it's like, no, man, when we break down the macros, the protein, this, that, and the other, and it's like, wait a minute. It's like, oh, I didn't know I was consuming X amount of calories. I'm like, yeah, well, that's because you're eating a pack of Doritos every day, and there's different issues that come up with that where it's almost like if we're not exposed to it and nobody really makes us accountable, like one of the first things that I do with my client is like, hey, we're going to keep a journal so that you can see exactly what you're consuming, right? When they do that, it's like, oh shoot, man, like I'm getting a lot more than I thought. And I guess in your case, what you're seeing with a lot of the clients that I would assume that you have, like, you probably see the same thing, right? That it's like, hey, man, take an inventory on your life. I think you're doing drugs because you have another issue that you should probably be dealing with. You're probably not, and that's probably where you come in to educate them on, hey, you don't need to take that stuff anymore. You can do this.
Yeah, and speaking that you're a trainer, I think that is especially in the alcohol and drugs. That's an area that is so overlooked. Is just basic nutrition.
Yeah,
And there's been so many studies and so much research in like, hey, the, the, when you eat better, your success rate in recovery is going to be
yeah,
better because you feel better.
yeah,
And that's unfortunately it's so overlooked. It's like you know, especially with a lot of people that I work with that are incarcerated. I mean, feed them garbage,
yeah,
and it's just it's. So I advise my guys is like, at least take a multivitamin. At least ask for a multivitamin because I know you're not getting near the nutrition that you need to be getting.
hmm
And I kind of joke with the guys, but it's true. I said, what y'all eat on a daily basis is reason for me never to come to jail. I was like, no, thank you. I like to eat too much, and I like my food. I like to have choice in life about
hmm
what I'm going to eat. But yeah, the nutrition part is so overlooked. I think it's great with like here recently, all the attention to gut health.
Yeah,
I think that plays a huge role because you got get the vagus nerve,
yeah.
and it goes from the gut to the brain, and they're figuring out, hey, you know,
Connected.
uh,
Yeah.
this thing plays a huge role in your mood and how you feel, and it's just I think the nutrition part really gets overlooked.
Yeah. And another thing that I was thinking as well is why do you think a lot of guys reach for alcohol to self-soothe? Because you had mentioned before, the guys with ADHD usually it's weed calms them down. But why do you think alcohol and why do you think or what does the population of the dudes who basically use alcohol look like?
Well, probably because it's legal. It's
Yeah,
easily
that's
accessible.
bad.
It's highly advertised. It's become, especially for men, it's a social thing.
Mhm.
You know, we're taught that, hey, men drink beer. That's what being a man is.
Yeah.
Um, and for a lot of people, when it comes to drugs, it makes you feel good. If it didn't
Mhm.
make you feel good, then you wouldn't use it.
Yeah.
Like everybody has their drugs of choice. If they take the drug and they don't like it, then they're not going to use that drug because it doesn't make them feel good.
Yeah.
And the question I always pose with people is, I try to keep things simple. Is are you happy? And if you were happy, you wouldn't be trying to substitute happiness through something else. So, okay, well, why are you not happy? Like, what's going on here? Are you in a crappy relationship that you feel you can't get out of? Do you feel the need to you have to be with somebody all the time? And
Mhm.
is it work related? Because it's just so ingrained in our society. Everything is surrounded by beer. What happens when you get upset or you get heartbroken? You go to the bar. What do they
Yeah.
sing about in country songs? You go to the bar. What do they sing about in rap songs?
To get
Popping those
high.
bottles, doing all this stuff. So
Yeah.
any kind of good thing, any kind of bad thing has alcohol surrounding it.
Interesting.
Tailgating, football, all this. Like I said, we're programmed, and like I said, these marketing guys in these alcohol companies, they're not stupid. That
Yeah.
they've been programming us for years and years and years.
That's
But
interesting. Yeah.
like I tell the guys that I work with is like, yeah, I said you can go out there, you can tailgate at a Tennessee Titans game, and you can drive home drunk, but Mr. Budweiser's not going to pay your bail. Mr. Budweiser is not going to. No, I was like he's got his money because you're paying what probably $20 for a beer or something at an NFL game.
Yeah.
They don't care. Like I said, it's your choice. They don't care.
Yeah.
They got their money.
Well, that's true. It's kind of one of the things I guess I overlook because I mean, I don't really drink anymore. I kind of got over that phase when I was younger, but you're right. It's not only is it readily available, it's also being blasted at us from every angle. I guess I've kind of become immune to it myself in that I don't really pay attention to it, but now that you mention it, you're right. It's kind of it's always there, it's always around. And even in some of like the advertisements, like when you go to the game and the stadium just has massive like Budweiser here or Heineken there or Corona this. And I guess from my perspective, it's just like, well, I don't really drink it anyways. I'm paying more attention to the Toyota ad because I'm like, ooh, that Tundra looks nice, But it's almost like for somebody who is an alcoholic, he's probably just getting that subconscious, going, and he doesn't even realize it, but he's got like Bud Light on his mind or Budweiser, or he's thinking whatever beer alcohol is its choice, right? He's like, ooh, Grey Goose. Yes, I'm going to go get a shot, And I guess it disrupts his subconscious pattern, I guess, because he's taking that in where I guess for us, we just don't, right?
Yeah, because when like how the brain works is just the thought, just the visual stimulus of that alcohol, that drink, that I guess up there be Molson or whatever y'all
Yeah.
drinking up there. Like I said, the brain, like I said, releases the same dopamine as if he was holding it in his hand.
Yeah.
So he's like, oh, just the anticipation. Okay, my brain is just lighting up. Like, all right.
Oh
And
man, yeah.
like I said, these marketing people, they know what they're doing.
Yeah.
You know, I remember the old, I guess they still have the Corona commercials where they're sitting on the beach. Just
Yeah.
everything's great. and
Everything's
there's a
perfect. Yeah.
and there's a there's a Saturday Night Live skit from years ago, and it it keeps going back to that, and the guy keeps getting drunker and drunker. He starts arguing with his wife or girlfriend.
Oh man,
But
I gotta
all
watch that.
but all you ever see is them laying there in their hands, and he just like starts spilling his drink and stuff. So, but yeah, it's just like I said, it's definitely a societal cultural thing, especially when it comes to men,
Mhm.
especially alcohol, because imagine going to a tailgate party and everybody's drinking, have a good time, and you're the one guy who doesn't drink.
Yeah,
How many people are going to be trying to talk you into having that drink?
everybody.
And then, yeah, and it's just it's really, and I and unfortunately, in my past, I mean, I paid a lot of money to go to places that I don't remember. Whether it be a concert, whether
Oh
it be
yeah,
a sport event, and I'm like, that's like I pay all this money to show, and I don't even remember being there because I was just so, tailgating and pre gaming and all that, and then show up
yeah,
and I was told I was there, but I was drinking the entire time,
yeah.
just being young and dumb, and looking back, you're like, I think I saw some pretty good bands, back in the day.
I've been there too, man. I remember one of the worst experiences I had. It's like it was Snoop Dogg had come to town. And I decided to drink a 2-6 with my friends, but I got there late, so I was gonna show them, right? I was gonna catch up, and I drank half that 2-6 by myself. And by the time I sat down, I remember I was puking all over the place and got sent home. I didn't even
Oh,
see the opening act, man. Like they sent my ass home, and I was like, damn, dude. It's like I didn't even get to see the concert, and I paid good money for it, right? But again,
yeah.
young, dumb, and you're experimenting with things that are detrimental and highly toxic. But luckily for us, we
Mhm.
were able to kind of make that distinction at an early age and say, hey, you know what? I don't really want to be a part of this anymore. And I think a lot of guys probably see it more as that coping mechanism for the rest of their lives. And that's kind of where the
Mhm.
danger, kind of the pitfall for the rest of their lives really
Mhm.
lies, right?
Yeah, and it just it becomes a habit. It becomes it might start out as just, hey, I'm just doing it on NFL Sunday or whatever with the buddies, and then it turns into, oh, well, I had a bad day at work on Monday, so I'm gonna start drinking when I get home at night, and it just kind of I mean, it grows and grows and grows and grows to where
Yeah.
that's our primary relationship. That's our go to whenever things are going bad, and actually sitting down and trying to figure out solutions is it's a lot of work. It's a lot easier just
Yeah.
to get blasted and not remember anything. And I don't know how it is up in Canada, but I know down here in the U.S., fentanyl is just. I mean,
Oh
it
yeah.
is. I mean, it is killing so many people. It is ridiculous, and they're. I mean, they're
Yeah.
putting it in everything, and it's just it is so sad just how. I mean, it's never been good. It's just the rate of overdose deaths in just the past 10 years has skyrocketed. I know just here in the Nashville area, you know, we're uh, a report came out a couple weeks ago, and then of course statistics are always a year or two behind, and
Yeah.
based on those statistics, we were the second leading county in the country for drug overdose,
Damn.
with almost 800 people dying. It's based off of the population of the city,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like that. I said, that's not surprising. Everybody thinks Nashville is just this wondrous place and stuff. I was like, there's a lot of drugs. It's a lot of crime these days because with the drugs comes the
Comes from
crime,
crime, yeah.
and then you got all the overdose. I mean, it's very scary. And I try to tell people, those days of experimenting with drugs are over.
Yeah.
Your first experiment could be your last.
Like legit,
I've
yeah.
lost I've lost clients to that stuff. I've lost friends to that stuff, and everybody thinks it's not going to happen to them.
Yeah.
And I had a class with a group of guys the other day, and I pulled those statistics up and I pointed at them. I go, "What makes you different than them 760 some odd people?" And I said,
Yeah.
"Nothing." I said, "You're no different from those people. Those people were husbands, wives, daughters, sons. I mean, moms and dads. It does not discriminate. It doesn't matter how much money you have. I mean, look at all the celebrities that overdose. They get
Yeah.
millions of dollars.
Yeah.
It's but to me, it really is really trying to get them to really look at their lives and go, okay, well, obviously you're not happy. So
Yeah.
how do we get to that happiness, that contentment? Like, hey, you're not gonna be bouncing off the walls happy all the time, but how do we just
Mm-hmm.
get to that base level? Because anytime anything drops below that base level, you're using something to try to get back up there.
Yeah.
It's a constant ups and downs, ups and downs. So, but yeah, I mean, it's tough, to work with people with alcohol drug problems,
Yeah.
uh, and it's unfortunately, you know, bad things happen, and all you can do is just try to educate them, try to give them the tools, and just hope for the best, because I can want the best for you, but it's not my call. It's it's yours.
Yeah. And it's funny that you mentioned fentanyl. I mean, I've actually met well, not met, I mean, people that I knew, I've met more than I'd say the biggest issue during COVID wasn't really COVID. It was all the overdose deaths that I kept hearing about and reading about and seeing. I'm like, oh, this guy, what happened to this guy? And all of a sudden I'm reading about like, yo, come to his funeral service. He just died last week. And I'm like, what kind of drugs was he doing? And I mean, like I said for myself, I've been so far removed from all that for years now. Like yeah, it's been years since I tried coke or any of that kind of stuff. But fentanyl was never a thing. I remember when I was a kid, it was ecstasy, right? It's kind of like that first hardcore drug that we all did. We're like, yeah, ecstasy, we're gonna party. Super stupid, but whatever. And, the stuff that was laced was always like speed and cocaine and whatever, right? I mean, was it good for me? No, right? But at the same time, I wouldn't say it was healthy, right? But it's almost like it wasn't as dangerous as it is
Mhm.
now, right? And I think to myself, and I think about my kids a lot, where it's just almost like, I got to be very strict with them and just say, hey, it's not even worth trying it because the ramifications of taking these drugs in this day and age could be life or death, right? And it's absolutely like to me, it's mind blowing when you look at the statistics. And like you mentioned, Canada's no different here. Like we have a massive drug issue, man. Like, I mean, we got streets here that are just like it's just dedicated to junkies. It almost looks like people compare it to Philadelphia because it's that bad, right? But that's mainly downtown, and it's just kind of like one area, all right, for the most part. Like I'm out in the suburbs, so you don't see it as much. But what you do see here are the teenagers that are experimenting with stuff, and it's like, oh no, they died, and it's pretty scary stuff. But when you show them the statistics of that, do some of the guys just say like, snap, like I got to snap out of it? Do they wake up or are they receptive to it or do they just continue?
Okay, I thought I had my phone off. I do find that men are typically be more are more receptive to statistics. I think that's just kind of how our brains wired. A lot of us we're about the facts. We're not
Mhm.
big on emotion, but when you actually put the numbers in front of them, and if it's coming from a reputable source, uh, either way, the individual is going to perceive it how they want to perceive it. If I'm just totally reluctant, then I can give them stats all day long, and then it's not going to hit. And somebody else, they might have that aha moment, like, wow, I never thought it was that bad. And when I was talking to the guys the other day about the stats, and they were like, they thought it was going to be worse, like
Wow.
because like I said, they're out there in the thick of it, and they've lost a lot of friends and family because of it. And I was like, I said, yeah, I said it's you know, and the way those statistics are, it probably is worse.
Yeah.
They probably was a drug overdose, but they labeled it as a heart attack or something. It's
Yeah.
statistics are so you know uh, so kind of finicky. It's kind of, but just the basic stats, I feel that um, really kind of kind of drives the point home. But um, like I said, you really don't know what somebody's thinking. Like I said, I just kind of put it out there, and the guys, I think they were very receptive of it because it got pretty quiet in there real quick.
Yeah.
So the ears are definitely turning. Um, and some had some comments on some people that they lost, and I had one guy a couple years ago. We were doing an alcohol and drug class, and I could tell something's kind of off. And he actually spoke up in class. He normally never said anything, and he's like, "I'm having a rough day." He said, "I just found out my cousin died of a drug overdose," and he
Mm.
started to tear up. He's like, "I never thought I'd be happy to be in jail because," he says, "we used the same drugs, we had the same drug dealer, and if I was out there, I guarantee you, I would have probably overdosed as well."
Jeez.
Um, so, and it's just, and hopefully, I haven't seen an individual in quite a while. Hopefully, that was his aha moment.
Yeah.
Realize it ain't worth it, but that addicted brain, it's a sweet talker and can kind of talk you into it real quick.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, it's a coping mechanism for a reason, right? And it's usually in those dark times is where that brain starts talking to you, kind of like the devil on your shoulder, where it's just like, "Come on, man,
Mm-hmm.
just one hit." Those are usually the times that we are the most vulnerable, and that's
Mm-hmm.
usually when a lot of this unfortunate crap kind of happens, right? But that being said, James, I had a wicked time talking to you, and I just want you to tell us a little bit more of Freedom from Anger, all your links, all the stuff where we can find you, or where anybody can find you for that matter.
Yeah, if I'm easy to get a hold of, I have a website. It's called freedomanger.com. It's got um, all of our services on there. It's got a link to the podcast. You can find the podcast on pretty much any of your major podcast carriers. Just put the Freedom from Anger podcast. Uh, let's see here. I got a YouTube page and the Instagram. I'll put little clips of podcast on there. I think both of them are the same. It's Freedom from Anger LLC. And then I think my Twitter or X or whatever it's called now is anger underscore LLC. But yeah, pretty much it's I'm trying to get out there. I'm not good at social media stuff, and it took me a long time to figure stuff out. I actually had to contact my sister-in-law a while back and ask her what a hashtag was. So I'm slowly figuring it out. Yeah, but yeah, if you need, we do free anger and stress management assessments, free consultations. Just reach out to me. I'll send over the form, fill it out, then we'll schedule a Zoom meeting and we'll have a little chat and see if you want to move forward using our services. So I don't care if you're in Canada or Zimbabwe, we'll work with you.
No, that's awesome, man. That's awesome. And just so everybody knows, I'm gonna make sure that all the links are in the description, so that way you get a hold of James. James, pleasure. Till the next one, man.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.